Okay, so let's have a look at every census for England and Wales for my same ancestor in quick succession, and we'll see the differences between them over time. So I've queued them up here. 1841 census. Now the first thing you'll note, actually we've got 2 pages, so that means there's much less information than there is in later censuses. And if we come down here to my family, now in this column they have written the street, the column heading is place. Then you've got houses, the number of houses that are habited or not, names of each person, age and sex, profession, and where born in same country, or whether born in same country, yes or no. So you've pretty much got minimal information, right? So let's say name, Anne Fry, age 55, grocer, born in the same country. Yes. Okay. And whether born in same county, not country, but in the next one it says whether born in Scotland, Ireland and foreign parts. That is because this census actually covers England and Wales. So Scotland, Ireland and beyond are all grouped together. Seems kind of funny looking at it in today's light. And we can see at the top you've got the parish or township of. So obviously this was the first census and therefore the information was minimal. But we've still got some useful information. However, what we're lacking in the 1841 census is connections, because this threw up a point. Anne Fry doesn't seem to appear anywhere else in my records at the moment, and it certainly looks like she is their mother, because she's got the same surname and the age difference, etc. But I can't prove that she is the mother. So you don't have the relations between the household members in this census. So swiftly on to 1851 census. Now, if we pull it back, you can see it's 1 page, right? Unlike the split that we had in the 1841 census. So that means either we got more space or more information. So we've got, parish or township. Now let's have a look in the heading. Number of householders schedule. So that's really more for their record, but it does actually look like the house number. If we look at that. So we've got the street name, name and surname, on the night of the 30th of March 1851. So we've got the specific date this was taken, relation to the head of the family, which we didn't have in 1841. Now the condition is marital status. In this case, we've got U for unmarried, Ma for married, Wid for widowed, and not much else. Okay, don't know why they've got blanks. I suppose under the legal age of marriage, so therefore it is implied. And rank or profession or occupation. Okay, great. So we've got a job, scholar being school, and so on. Often you just see, look at this, shipwright, shipwright wife. And where born. County followed by place. Devon, Ilfracombe, which is where this was taken. And we've got the DO for ditto. Whether blind or deaf and dumb. And I've only just noticed this. We've got an arrow into here. I don't know what that means, but maybe she was blind. Now looking at the photos, I'm not really sure, but that's not mentioned anywhere in my family records, because that is my 3 times great grandmother. You've normally got a dash, but for some reason there's other markings. So we can see 14 4th Street in Ilfracombe. Perfect. We've got the address and we've got all the other information. The wife. So you've got the head of the household, wife, son, servant. Becomes very clear quite quickly. You may also see visitor, but people who are stopping overnight or perhaps just renting a room for a few days. So we've got a nice bit of more information there than we had in the 1841 census. 1861, let's have a look. It's a very similar layout. Okay, parish or township again. And we've got the option then of these cities, wards and boroughs. Town, and hamlet, ecclesiastical district. It's nice if you could read it. I can see up here the boundaries of the parish of Ilfracombe. Okay. Got the same. Now this time we've got a number of schedule, and you've got then road, street, and number or house name in one. Okay, because you can see the schedule number here, 15, is different to 13 Broad Street here, which is my ancestors. I think a lot of these 1861 census are really quite hard to read, if I remember rightly. Now, I don't know whether it was the scanning that was done or whether there was a shortage of ink. If anyone can tell me, please do say in the comments. But again, we've got a similar thing, name and surname of each person, and we've got the relation, condition, age. Why you have to put an age of a male or a female in a different column is beyond me, but anyway. And rank, profession, occupation, where born. Again, they followed the same conventions. It's very similar, so we're not getting much extra information there. Same shorthand it looks as well. Ma for married, un in this case for un. Whether that's a variation between the enumerators, the people who wrote them down, I don't know. But yes. And remember, as I said, this is quite hard to read. If you need it in Ancestry, you can invert the colors. That may help. I do find that helps a little bit. Still not that easy, but there's a tip for you when working with Ancestry records. Okay, on to 1861. Okay, on to 1871 then. Let's see what we've got. Now, so much clearer, isn't it? Again, there's variation between each one, but this one looks so much clearer. Okay, let's kind of gloss over the top. They're very similar, not much difference there, and we've got pretty much the same. But we've brought back the houses inhabited, uninhabited again. And yeah, name, surname, relation to head of the family, condition, and where born, and the same comes again. Looks like the same surname. Again, I'm just seeing a little perhaps addition of the shorthand DAUR for daughter. That's a slight difference perhaps on the earlier one, but otherwise looking quite similar, and not much has really changed of significance. In terms of my ancestors' family here, you can see that there has grown. There have been several more siblings added as well. So that's just an interesting note. And you start to see jeweler's apprentice for William Barnes. And I think he goes on to continue his career path, let's say. Okay, 1881, what have we got? Okay, along the top looks very similar again, and looks very similar altogether. However, they've written here for some reason age, last birthday of. Why they don't write age, I don't know, but anyway, that's just age, so they're not getting any extra information out of that. You might notice the shorthand for unmarried seems to have changed here at least to UNM, unmarried, and W for widowed. But again, we could just have variation between the individuals writing these. And in terms of my ancestor here, Agnes Blackmore Barnes, she is sadly widowed at this point, and she is a retired grocer's wife. So we're seeing that family dynamic change. And I mentioned her son William Barnes, who was a jeweller's apprentice in the previous census. He's now 2 doors away from her. He's a watchmaker and jeweller, and he's also a local Methodist preacher. So you can see the family starting to change. Okay, on to 1891 then. Let's have a look. Okay, initially it looks quite clear. The handwriting is perhaps a little more legible. And we've got no big changes really. Once again, however, we seem to have added in this column here. Number of rooms occupied if less than 5. Curious why they had to specify that. Maybe there was some kind of tax reason or something along those lines. However, what we do have now is a distinction in terms of the employment. We've got employer, employed, neither employer nor employed. So you've got this visual of it, these tick boxes. It starts to seem that women and children are exempted from these tick boxes. And if I look here again, my ancestor Agnes Fry Barnes is living with her daughter and son-in-law, and only he has got the cross. The daughter, who is his head of the household wife, no cross. 3-year-old, 1-year-old, 1-month-old, no cross. Widowed, and at 71, no cross either. So only one of them is even registered here. Why they didn't just cross them all, again, mysteries, but saving ink, saving time, I suppose. Human habits. Okay, 1901 census next up. Let's see. Now, instantly looks like we've got a few more columns here, doesn't it? So, no major change to the heading. Schedule, street name, houses, uninhabited in the middle, inhabited, in occupation, but uninhabited, uninhabited, not in occupation. Whether uninhabited in occupation, I suppose that must mean that somebody is away, but they do live there normally, and this is just vacant. And a building, what they get from that, I don't know, but this looks rather odd when you see a column that is completely, or these two, completely empty for an entire, let's say, page of the census. Maybe that wasn't the best idea by someone designing the census, but if you've got a better suggestion why that happened in the comments, please do let us know. And for this, I'm going to have to go to the next page to be able to decipher it, because it's just not clear enough on that one page. But if we look here, could just about make out, it says number of rooms occupied if less than 5. So similar to what we had before. Name and surname, relation, condition as to marriage, age last birthday, profession occupation, employer, worker or own account now instead of the, did we have profession and occupation before? If working at home. So home working is a bit longer than we might think in modern terms. And where born. And again, we've got these, very dated Victorian terms for disability. So again, my ancestor here, she's now listed as a widowed mother-in-law at 81, living on own means. Okay, living with her daughter and son-in-law's family in a very similar place, St James's Place in Ilfracombe. And lots of young children, rather nicely. Granddaughter Agnes Fry Batten is named after her, as she was born Agnes Fry. Okay, and on to 1911. Now, as you can see, complete change. We've got this yellow paper, and actually, if I flick over the page, this is the first time then in the England and Wales census where we've got submission per household. So Mr. G.K. Batten, who was in the 1901, where my three times great grandmother was living with him, her son-in-law and the family. And you've got the postal address, dedicated. Again, Ancestry, for some reason the cover is on the next page, the page after the census return. So don't get confused by that. And we've got what looks like a much clearer census here. Okay, so if we look at the headings, obviously the name and surname, and we can see April 2nd, 1911, and arrived in the dwelling April 3rd, 1911, and they weren't listed elsewhere. Sure, there are issues where people might have been listed in two places, but I don't know of any in my family. Relationship, head of the family, age and sex. Okay, so we've got distinction in those two columns. And this time, they've been specified. They have to write it out in full, which was a good thing. Single, married, widower or widow. Again, what the difference between widower and widow is, if anyone knows in the comments, do let us know. And now, a nice thing you have here, especially if you're struggling to find the marriage records, is it says how long they've been married. Don't know why it only says it for the wife, but how long the present marriage has lasted. Interesting to use the word present marriage, because I always think divorce almost never happened then, but the fact that they've written present marriage means there were people getting divorced. I know divorce in England and Wales has been possible for hundreds of years, starting with Henry VIII, but you just don't think of it as something that would have happened. But I suppose the census has to account for every possibility. And you've got the amount of children born alive. Again, now I've talked about this in other videos. I'm not really sure if that means stillbirth to account for or what, but because in the next column it says still living and those who have died. So why it doesn't just say children born? Again, one for you commenters, do let us know if you know. But if you do see this and they don't appear in another census, right, the numbers don't add up, you can go and add them just straight away without a name, without a date of birth, because that will then help the ancestry hints to find them. So that's a really good tip. This 1911 census is great for that. It gives you that new information. Okay, got occupation. Interestingly here, I've got a dental student. Okay, so Kevin Batten, the son, not a direct ancestor of mine, but let's say, some kind of great granduncle. And obviously that shows there's some money in the family. I mean, I think that's been evident throughout all of these, but yeah, dental student. Doesn't say where. I wouldn't expect Ilfracombe to have had a dentist school, but maybe I'm wrong. And just a small change to note here, actually, that they've started writing the place name and then the county. In other censuses, they've often written the county, then the place name. Again, specifies it, but it doesn't really change much. It doesn't really add much more information. Here we're also seeing I've got employer for the son-in-law, both columns. Now, industry or service with which the worker is connected. This is probably a mistake, really. I'm not sure they should write employer there because he was a photographer. So they could have written photography, but hey, we can flick over to others to see what they've got for that. And you do see that there may be misinterpretations by the enumerators on these as well. So remember, it's just people filling in a form, so we can't be too beholden of what is written on here. In certain cases, we still have to use our common sense. In terms of nationality, then it does specify whether they're a British subject by parentage, naturalized British subject, and then just write the nationality. Accuracy, they just haven't done it here. And again, whether that was the submission, people submitting them getting confused, don't know, or whether they were just told that it's okay, you don't need to worry about it. And in terms of infirmity, we've still got very similar options, numbers 1 to 4, none in this case. Actually, I should correct something I said earlier. I talked about an enumerator. Well, actually, in this case, the 1911 census was the first that was submitted by the head of the household. So it is actually George Kevin Batten who may have got confused about these, which makes even more sense because individuals doing it for themselves for the first time. So there's going to be so much more variation. Now, if we come down the bottom as well, we've got the numbers of people. It's no big shakes because we've already figured that out, right? 3 males, 4 females. But this is filled in by the enumerator. Again, the official person on behalf of the government collating these. And we've got the number of rooms in the house written out in full. Signature. It's always nice to be able to see the signature of someone who's written these, because then you get a real sense that you're reading their writing and you know this is their writing as well. So you get to know them that little bit more. And down here, I can't get rid of it. It can't take the green off, but it is the postal address. One thing to note on this, in this return, it says Norfolk House, Ilfracombe. If I look at the actual address down here, you see Norfolk House, 1 St James's Place. So that may be useful, because if you go over to the cover, then you've got the more of the modern day postal address without the name of the house. So it seemed quite common for Victorians to have a house name, maybe even more important than a number. And we've got 1 St James's Place. So Ancestry very conveniently has actually collated that into a combined address down here. Norfolk House, 1 St James's Place. But having the house name and the number and street name is great additional info for you. So there you go. Those are all the Ancestry. Now, next up, watch my video on Ancestry records here, and I'll see you there.